this was supposed to be armpit day. Did you know that old Chevys have armpits? Armpits. There they are, cut out of the car. And they come from down here at the bottom front part of the fender, where you've actually got a quadruple complex curved piece of metal going on. It bends two ways at once. So you've got this curve of the rocker panel that kind of curves going that way down the car. And then you've got the curve of the fender, and as it meets, this is dished this way, right? It's got a dish this way, but it's also curved going over the hump. So that's the part that's really difficult. I've spent a couple days on rebuilding these armpits, and the saddest thing ever was yesterday I was out doing another video shoot, and I erased a card that has all the details on it. So today you're going to get a bit of an explanation, then we're going to move on to something else. But I think the armpit thing is really important because, to me, I would say, you know, all of the big panels on the fenders and the different pieces that all across the back of the car, the rocker arms and all those kind of things, those are pretty straightforward. They're just, you know, you just do the work and you end up with the good results. But this armpit thing, these double complex curves in sheet metal, you know, you've got to either figure out a way to make it in one piece or make it in a bunch of pieces. And I think I ended up going to a bunch of pieces that I will weld together. The first one I did on the right-hand side of the car, I did it in one piece and tried my best to bend it all four ways at once. Well, you bend it one way and then the other one undoes, right? And you go back and do that. And yeah, pretty soon you got a piece of metal that's like a limp rag. I cut this one out first and then tried to make one piece, a whole piece that would fit in there. Well, you got to make it bigger so that you can handle it, so that you can wheel it. And so I tried a bunch of different things. I got 4 or 5 over there that are no good, ready for the scrap pile. And it gets complicated. So then I put it together and then heated it. After it was all welded, I figured, okay, I'm just going to heat it and then, you know, heat it red hot and then tap it into some semblance of the right curve. Yeah, okay. So I've got a joint here, and you can see this is where I heated it to bend it into shape, tap it into shape. Use this MAP Gas Pro torch. It's a great little torch, you know. I've got a propane torch as well, but this one here will heat it up to red hot. So yeah, it's great. You just push the button and you get power. So the next side of the car, done with this one, I decided to make 3 pieces. So I did the 2 convex bends, convex shapes, and then the concave one in the middle, which is a real tricky one. Actually, I'm not done that one yet, so I'm just hoping today goes really good. So I made this piece here, which is basically, it's like a bowl almost. It's so curved. And so I beat that out on the sandbag, on the leather bag with the plastic mallet, and I beat it into a dish shape and then rolled it or wheeled it with the English wheel to make it smooth. And it came out nice. I mean, the great thing about the English wheel is you just a little here, a little there, and you can move stuff around. And then this side here is really quite simple because the curve isn't very much. So I just you know, got a piece and whatever. That's going to carry on right down to the front of the doorpost, right? So that curve there, just establishing it for now with this piece. And then brought this out a bit of a curve here on this, and a bit of a curve here on this, and then filling in this trough. So that's what I'm working on right now, is making this little trough here, which bends 2 ways wrong. I'm just going to clamp that in tight and weld it, and I left it back a little bit because it's kind of the first part of the curve. And so I'll just fill over top of the weld, and then that'll become the lower armpit. Okay, then this is the other side of it. The dish basically made a bowl, and I could fit it here because see, that's all one That's one curve. It's just bulged out here. So it fits this curve, and it fits this curve, and it'll fit this curve. And then the little trough in the middle. Now that's the big challenge at this point. So that's the deal. You got this little trough thing that's going to fit in there, and that's the curve that's the challenge. Okay, so it curves this way and it curves this way in opposition to each other. So now the deal will be to fit that up in there and to get it to match on both sides. So basically I cut a strip and I curved it, put this curve in first with the, well, just by hand and with the metal brake and then with the English wheel. And so then started to bend the trough backwards using the stretcher. Okay, and so it marks it up here, but most of that's going to be cut off. So I've been stretching it a lot. It's amazing what you can do with that stretcher. I mean, that thing will make a full circle if you want it to. And so it looks like we're getting really close. The scary part is cutting and then finding out that you cut too much. So I think it's got to come up just a bit more here. So to do that, to make this tighter, we stretch it right here. And the best skill you can develop is knowing where to cut. We've got this fitting in here quite nicely, but the problem is this car is hanging in the middle of the air. and I would love it to just sit still for a minute so I could push on it, but I can't push on it. I think if I had longer fingers, we'll tack it here. And we'll start trimming little bits out, following the lines of the inside pieces, and then shoving it in and welding it, and hopefully not cut off too much at once, and then, you know, easier to cut a little more later, then add some on. Cut out enough that we can see our way. Get this initial edge lined up. So getting this to line up and hold it lined up while you cut it, pretty well impossible. So what I'm going to do is tack it on the bottom so that it holds its alignment while I cut it, and then I'll remove the tack later. It's the great thing about steel. It's very flexible. Because if you don't like it, you cut it and do it again. And if you don't like that, you make a new piece. If you weld one direction, starting at one end, then you have an opportunity to adjust it as you go. If you weld two ends and then try to fix it in between, and you got a bulge or something, yeah, you kind of shot yourself in the foot. So we'll go a little bit at a time and make the curve right and make the amount of steel in there right and cut as we need to. You know, the crazy part is you got to work so hard on a little thing like an armpit that's way under the belly of the car anyway. Nobody's ever going to see it. But, but you got to do it all right. You can't just do part of it right. And so, I mean, you saw the horrendous rust that was in this thing. What made this car worthy of this level of investment of time? Well, the other option is you buy a nice car, but then you don't want to cut it up, right? This car, I have no qualms about cutting it to pieces. Whatever needs to be cut and welded, she's going to happen. And it'll come out, you know, stock looking 49. Cutting discs, welders, and let's get at it. So there's the finished product. So you've got a weld here.
Time for lunch. Enjoy.
Okay, honey. You've got a weld here and a weld here. And then that part of it that I built is pretty nice. But you got a little bit of a, let's see if we can see it here. Here we are. See, there's a little gully there. That's going to have to be filled. And then there's another one right here. Mostly in the old metal. That's going to have to be filled. But not bad. So part of the process of getting those armpits done is beefing up the inside. So I put this plate across the inside so that everything ties to it on the bottom, and then it comes back to the inside of the fender well, right, which I extended down here and then brought that in tight to the new fender piece, and then make it here so that no water will run or catch in there, that any moisture that gets in there splashes up from the tires onto here will actually run out and not cause rust. I mean, this thing is so rusty all the way along in here, it's just pathetic. So here's the other side coming together. Got this plate here that matches the rocker panel, and bringing it back here for strength. And then this again, I'll cut this off square with the inner fender well and bring that fender well down right to touch, fit into the curve here of the inside of the fender. And you can see, like, there's lots of little patches and little pieces that have had to been rebuilt, and of course I'm this far, I've got to keep building. But even the inside here, the part that the fender rim, that the fender curl welds to.
All right, broadcasting now.
She's making lunch. And one more thing, well, probably 6 more things, because there's always a half dozen more little things at the end. But about 2 o'clock this morning, my wife whispers over to me, "What are you thinking about?" And I thought, she wants to talk about cars. No, I said, actually, I just figured out how I'm going to form the rocker panels on this Chev Cadillac crossbreed thing, because I have to totally replace the rocker panels on the 49 Chev. And it's one of the main points where the 49 Chev Fleet Line body is going to connect to the 06 Cadillac CTS body. And I've built up the Cadillac already with the steel brace, okay, or steel kind of makes like a frame along the side, which it's a frameless car. But this is going to be really important, and I needed a way to form the rocker panel, to keep it in shape and to strengthen it so that it actually provides the strength of the frame on the side of the car. So the original rocker panel, right, the door sits on top of here, closes on here, closes into this groove, and then the rocker panel comes down, and there's a slight curve on here which will reproduce, and then it's got this little kind of goes in here where then it forms spot welded to the vertical piece that comes out here, and then this is the floor of the car this way. So the deal is, we want to get rid of this and make it come down from here. It'll come into the Cadillac. This part here will come right over on top of the Cadillac frame. Then down like this again for the door, down around here, and straight down to this point, and then from there it'll go straight in horizontally into the bottom of the Cadillac frame. So the Cadillac frame is a box sitting here. So when we get this cut off, this will be 3 inches, a little more than 3 inches. We're calling this the Cadillac frame. It's not actually the frame. It's steel that I stuck in there to give it some strength on the outer edge, and then to be able to weld the new rocker panel to. So the new rocker panel will weld on top of here and underneath here. and that'll be just perfect for the 49 Chev. So this is the level of the original floor of the 49, right? And this is the level of the very bottom of the rocker panel on the 49. So it's going to come out from here, up around the rocker panel curve there, then in with that little ledge for the door to sit on or to fit into, and then on top of here. Now the width between the rocker panel, 49 rocker panel and the Cadillac at the front is about 3 inches wider than it is at the back. So this will come up probably about a 6-inch deal. So that's going to take a fair whack of steel. So the idea is I can put those little ribs on the inside of here and have them measured. So I'll put, figure out where the front one goes, where the back one goes, and I'll string a line in between or a straight edge. And that way I'll be able to measure all of these little ribs, stick them in there, and that'll hold the whole rocker panel in the right shape, the right distance, and give me some support to weld to. And these ribs are going to work like a charm. And so I said, how did you know that I was awake? And she says, because you whistle while you work. I guess I was having a good time. But some of these other little things, the back corners where the bumper support comes through the body, I've had to fix both of those. And again, cut out the part where it's been doubled, right? So on the one side here, the inside I had to replace that whole shelf or part of the floor. It's actually where the gas filler came through on the 49 Chev. The Cadillac has the gas filler on the other side of the car, so I'm going to move it over. And I think I'm going to just leave it in the trunk, mounted in the trunk just for aesthetics, because I don't want it to mess up the outside look of the car. So I just replaced that whole thing. It was rusted anyway, but this corner panel of the car, cut out whatever was rusty and cut it in straight lines. It's easier. And then put a metal blank behind it about the right size. And then trace it with a Sharpie, noticing how far the distance is between the Sharpie line and the edge of the actual old steel, so that you can just leave that much when you're cutting the new steel, because it really pays to have a tight joint in there. Just so much easier to weld. And take your time getting it ready, because it'll save you double or triple the time later when you're having to weld. And not only that, but you heat it up way too much if you're trying to weld a gap. So then tack it every inch just with a zip, nice hot, small tack. And then halfway in between, once that cools down, the key is you got to be able to put your hand on it at any time. Otherwise you're getting too hot. Some guys use compressed air to cool it. Some guys will use a wet rag or whatever. You actually don't really need anything unless you're in a real hurry. But make sure you keep it cool. And these smaller areas are harder to keep cool because this heat isn't spread out so much. So yeah, a little bit of bead rolling on that. Had to do the other corner as well. It was even worse. Had to curve it right underneath the car. So there's some English wheel going on there. But the other way, if you're going to use a big panel, is to put the panel, get the panel shaped right. So say if you're the side of the fender or whatever, shape the panel right to fit, and then clamp it on, using whatever clamps you use. And then use the zip disc to cut along the side of the new piece of metal as it's resting against the old piece. So you cut in on an angle, like a 45-degree angle. Then the new piece will fit in against the old piece, and that gap will actually close. It makes it really nice to weld. Start in one corner, tack it, cut a few inches either way, weld, inch apart or whatever. And then cut some more, tack some more. Be careful you don't force a bulge in it. Make sure that it's relaxed and it's going where it wants to go. You don't want to force anything really hard to fix after. And go around, pretty soon after a couple hours, you got it all welded. One little tack at a time. And there's no warpage. If you warp it, yeah, good luck with that pretzel. Just go get yourself a new car and start over again. Also keep in mind that it's a really good idea before you start cutting pieces out of your car, especially if you're going to cut all the way across, or like I've done is cut the entire rocker panels out of the side of this car. I mean, I've cut the entire floor out. I've cut the entire everything out. The firewall's gone. There's nothing left. I mean, look at this. All there is some braces. But that's my point. Put lots of braces in. And think about it before you cut, especially if you're making long cuts or big cuts. would a little brace help? Just a stick of steel, tack it in, you cut it off after and grind the weld smooth and nobody will ever know it was there. But that'll save you a lot of work. But the big thing is it'll save you a lot of misalignment later on, because like this car is hanging in the air. I could easily put stuff together there that was just way out of whack because I've got nothing to compare it to. But it's all braced so that nothing's moving, and whatever I weld in place then has the right, what should I say, lack of tension or pressure on it, so that when this 49 Chev Fleetline body slides down on top of the Cadillac CTS, there won't be any force. I won't be pushing and shoving and jacking and squeezing to get it to fit. It's already fitting. I take it off, do the work, put it back on, it still fits. Anyway, all of these little jobs, yeah, they're kind of fun, but then when you go to do the next job, you realize, hey, I got 6 more other little jobs I got to do before I can get to that one. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next episode.